to live stream.
Well, I'm trying to get it also up on my phone so that I can see if anybody has any questions, but I think it is 7:02 and we should get started. Hi, I'm Betsy Wickstrom, one of the board members from the 802 United, being joined today by our board president, Julie Wilson, and our special guest, Meleesa Grate. Today, we're going to have a really interesting discussion. I think a lot of you will want to hear what we have to say, but I always like to begin with what on earth is the 802 United and why are we even here? So our nonprofit organization is all about education and advocacy regarding not political candidates or political parties. We're nonpartisan, but we're issue-based. We want to spread the word about issues that are being considered in the Kansas legislature that affect all of us. And then in between legislative sessions, we kind of talk a little bit more about what's going on nationally, but we're very Kansas focused and we want to amplify voices of other Kansans that have something to say about things like public education and healthcare access and common sense gun laws and things that in our perfect world of puppies and rainbows, we would do better at in our Kansas legislature. So our vision is a state where everyone is welcome and everyone's voice can be heard, where we use our voices and volunteering and voting to make Kansas a welcoming place for all human beings, regardless of anything you could describe them with. So we won't go through all of those. But we're not very old. We're just about a year old. And we love to come and table at your event. If you wanted us to come there, just message us on Facebook. Or you can email info@802united.org and we'll answer you there. All right, that's enough intro. I'll be quiet and let you guys talk.
So tonight we have a great speaker in Meleesa Grate, who is a realtor. And she's going to talk to us about what's going on with our real estate market, because as you guys all know, the prices are astronomical. The interest rates are astronomical. And I don't see that they're coming down any. And as Meleesa and I have talked over the last month or two, she doesn't see them coming down any. And so we're going to talk about what's going on, what's causing it, and what she sees for the future of us here in Kansas with the cost of real estate. So Meleesa is a graduate of Kansas State University. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And she has an agriculture degree.
Yes, ma'am.
She's worked at the state level at the Department of Agriculture. And she's worked in what other job you've had? She's had interesting jobs. What other jobs have you had?
Well, I worked for the Department of Commerce because back then agriculture was an arm. The ag marketing part was part of commerce. Since then, it's under the house of or under the awning roof of agriculture. I've done a lot of stuff, mostly economic development and real estate. So yeah, but you're right, Julie. We've talked about a lot of other interesting things. We probably shouldn't get into that here. But like a couple years here, I've done some project management, but yeah, and yeah, some recruiting back in the day for Management Recruiters International. So just a hodgepodge of stuff, just enough to be dangerous in a lot of categories.
And speaking of dangerous, Meleesa is in the eye of the storm here tonight. It's fixing to roll right over her house. So if we suddenly cut off, that's the situation that we're dealing with, as many of the rest of you are dealing with out there in Kansas land today. So Meleesa, why don't you tell us what is going on with the real estate market these days?
So Julie, when Julie asked me to do this, and I said, sure, what do you want me to talk about? And I was reading from the post on Facebook, what's going on with the real estate market, what's driving the market? Will the price of housing start to tumble as it did in Texas and Florida? What will it take to start to see prices become more affordable? So I wish I had good news. I sat down to do the research so that I wasn't just giving you my sole perspective, but backing it with some legitimate information and numbers. And so there's the consumer perspective, there's the agent perspective, lender perspective, government perspective. You've got service providers that are all trying to get a piece of the pie right now. And the economy is obviously impacting what we're doing. And then you've got rural versus urban real estate. So overall, I finally decided, I kind of talked to Julie yesterday in a bit of a panic. So I was like, I have so much information. I'm not sure how to dial this in. And so I'm going to start with what's currently going on with the market and why everybody's concerned right now, and why the media has made you believe as a consumer that all of a sudden you're going to be able to afford a house because you're not paying commissions to real estate agents anymore. And the perception is that real estate agents or their local organizations have set a minimum commission that has to be paid. And the truth is that isn't the truth. And the truth is there is no minimum. There never has been. It's always been negotiable. Am I doing okay? I just had an unstable thing pop up. We're good. Okay.
Yeah, we can hear
So honestly, this has a lot to do with the Department of Justice and the federal government. And where I personally believe this is coming from is they want everyone to believe that we are certainly not in a recession. No way, no how. And so we are maybe right on the precipice of that. I'm not sure, but they are using the real estate market currently, in my humble opinion, to make it appear or to prop up that market. Because look at all the people who are still buying houses, even though we keep raising interest rates. Do you see that? There can't be a recession if that's happening. Well, the truth is, what's driving the market right now is the reduction of inventory and the increased price of buying. If you have the money to buy, you're sitting in a great place. If you already own a home, you're sitting in a great place. If you were a homeowner and you had your home locked in, because everyone, if they were smart, refinanced when interest rates went down to as low as 2.5% there for a while. And if you did refinance and you're sitting on an interest rate of 2.5% up to anywhere up to 5%, and someone says, you should sell your house, and smile and nod. Why the hell would you sell your house when, one, the inventory is that there's nowhere for you to go except to go up maybe $250,000 or $300,000 in price? And then why the hell would you sell your house if you're going to get an interest rate that's 7.5% or 8%? There are people doing it because honestly, real estate, if it continues to accrue value, is a great investment. Where else can you double your money in 8 to 10 years? Literally double your money. Example, there's a young man that I went to school with at K-State and high school. Actually, we went to high school together. He didn't go to K-State, but he supports K-State now because his daughters go there. And he bought an investment property 8 years ago. And he paid about $82,000 for that house, if I recall. I looked it up. I don't have the exact numbers. And I asked him if it was okay to share this, and he said it was. And he lives in Independence. And the reason they bought this home is because it was on the right side of the street that divides Independence by schools. And he wanted his daughters to be able to go to school on the better side, considered better for Independence. And so he rented the property out, and his eldest daughter is getting ready to graduate from college now, and his youngest is getting ready to go into college. And the youngest isn't sitting quite as well academically as the oldest, and he's going to have to pay for a considerable amount of her college out of his pocket. And he said, hey, I think I need to sell the house. And I said, okay, well, let's look and see. I said, I'll look and see what it's worth. How is it? Because it's had a tenant in there. And when I pulled comps on that property, it's now went from $82,000 to $195,000 in 7 years. And we're not talking a fancy house. It's a little maybe 3 bedrooms. I think it was 2 bedrooms, and 1 bath, no garage, just a little, kind of efficiency kind of house. And he couldn't believe it. He's like, you got to send me this. And that's where everyone is sitting right now. I believe that interest rates, me personally, and I've consulted several in the industry, I don't know that interest rates are going to go down now this year because the Department of Justice needs interest rates to stay where they are and even potentially go up a little bit more. Lenders don't think they're going down now. For a while, they thought they were, but they need us to be in the limelight as agents. Like we've been we've been doing some kind of scam here and charging people 6% when we shouldn't have been. And it's a really scary situation to be in as a self-employed person. Myself, as a real estate agent, my people know me personally, and they know that I would never do that, and they trust me. And that hopefully is the relationship that most agents have with their individuals. I would hope so. If not, they may not need to be doing real estate. But the other situation, and I'm trying to keep this organized because there is so much information. So the Department of Justice shone this light on the real estate industry, and everyone's looking at real estate now when they're not looking at what else is going on in the news, major news. And Joe Biden, in his most recent address to the nation, even said, well, now houses are going to be more affordable because, we're spreading the wealth around. And let me see if I may have taken an image of his exact words. But that's not the case either, because the federal government hasn't even dealt with the guaranteed loans that they provide, FHA, VA. Those folks now have less buying ability because they have to figure out how they're going to make a down payment and how they're going to finance and pay a commission. Those 2 loan parameters do not allow them to roll the commission for the agents into the purchase price. So unless the seller is willing to pay their commission, they have to come up with not only their down payment, which if you have the right VA loan, it's 0% down. And if you have an FHA loan, it's 3.5% that buyers have to come up with. So that's going to be interesting. They're either going to have to change the loan parameters, or they've just efficiently and effectively taken out a huge faction of buyers they thought they were accommodating without dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. Hurting the market. I'm looking at my notes here.
So basically what you're telling
in the
us,
Kansas City market, we currently have.
So basically what you're telling us is we have another government agency creating rules that create unintended consequences.
Yeah. You have to be on the same page, and all pieces and parts have to be working together, and they're not. They're just not. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, it makes my job difficult because someone will call me and say, well, now I don't want to pay you commission. Or I'm going to sell my house, but I don't want to pay a commission on it. Well, as agents, and maybe I should start there. So as agents, when we work to sell homes or buy homes, there's a local system called the multi-listing system. You will hear agents shorten that to MLS. And the MLS is a local organization. And in our case, all of our cases, the Heartland MLS, which is located in Leawood, Kansas, services a significant part of Kansas as well as the western part of Missouri. And they just seem to keep gobbling up these little MLSs that can't afford to keep going anymore because the agents are few and the fees are high. And the local MLSs, their job is to allow us to list properties for sale, and it makes it available for all of those in the MLS system, which we pay fees for, to view those properties. And in that system, it will give you not only details about the property, taxes, past purchases and sales, current mortgages. It also lists currently the commissions paid to both agents. Part of the settlement agreement that the Department of Justice has accepted from the National Association of Realtors is one of the caveats in there is that they will no longer list those commissions within the MLS system. I don't know why this is a sticking point, because to me, if I have to pick up the phone and call someone and say, hey, I see you're listing at 12 South National, whatever it is. What is the commission on that? And a conversation leaves it wide open. And to me, without stating it plainly, leaves a lot of gray area, not black and white area. If it's plainly stated, it takes the wiggle room out. And there are already agents who are taking advantage of the situation. For instance, it started well before the Department of Justice got involved. There were agents who were charging the 6% or 7%. There are agents that even charge as much as 7%, and offering 2.5% to the buyer's agent and taking the rest of the commission for the seller's agent. So there's going to have to be a lot of cooperation among agents. And yeah, I don't know. They have preliminarily, as of 2 days ago, the Department of Justice had the offer from the National Association of Realtors long enough that they had sent it for a preliminary acceptance. And they've had it for a month and a half now. Since the first part of March, everyone started to panic in the real estate industry. So we still don't know if they're going to accept it, the offer. There are still a couple of very large holdouts as far as the negotiations that are going on amongst the large brokerages and the Department of Justice over this suit that actually originated in Missouri. Yeah, Betsy's, ta-da! Yeah, lots of things come from Missouri. So it's not what they're doing, manipulating the market, obviously isn't hurting the market. There are still houses for sale. People are still buying the houses. Really, the only extra step it's added for us, other than the misinformation that's coming from the media, is now we have to call an agent and say, so what is the commission on this? And we also are offering in the settlement that the National Association of Realtors is saying, going forward, we will get a written agreement in writing stating this is how much we will work for. So if it's not provided by the seller, they know they have to come up with that percentage. So they've limited a buyer's ability to purchase, their purchase ability, by possibly having them pay their commissions as well as their closing costs. All of these things are negotiable. They always have been. So my rambling, Julie, what else do you want to know?
No, that makes sense. Do you know why whoever brought this suit in Missouri brought the suit? That's a piece that I don't know.
They worked with, and I have worked for a large brokerage in the real estate industry, and I chose to leave based on some of the things that were going on there that I didn't agree with. And it is true. Some of the large brokerages say, hey, we charge 6%. However you want to break that down, that's what we charge. We get 3%, the buyer's agents get 3%. And someone in Missouri said, oh, they told me I had to pay this. Well, it's not a have to. And so then some lawyer picked it up and here we are.
Okay.
Pretty much.
That's interesting because when I go to buy something, I have to pay the price for what at the grocery store. I have to pay the price. Yeah, I have to, when I go to see Betsy as a OBGYN, I have to pay the price that she charges me.
Right. Yeah, or insurance, and all that's negotiable too.
Well, for the insurance company, but not me.
Right, exactly. So it's added a whole nother layer. And honestly, it makes me feel yucky, a little bit yucky. I'm like, I always do business. I'm a legitimate businesswoman. I do legitimate business. I don't hide things. But honestly, there are some folks out there who do. And so this is going to kind of shake out some of the people who just were in to make a fast buck. Some of the agents who thought brokerage or throughout real estate would be an easy job.
Huh.
So I don't see this switching to a seller's market anytime in the near future, or the buyer's market. Inventory mandates that anything above 3 months worth of inventory may start to tip the scale toward a buyer's market. And we haven't seen that for a very long time. We currently have 1 month of inventory on hand in the local MLS here.
So you talked about there's this reduction of inventory that's driving the market.
Yes,
How
ma'am.
did we get in that kind of a situation with the reduction of inventory?
Well, COVID happened and no one was selling homes. And then we had a huge influx of properties right after we were able to leave our homes again. And there's a population boom as well. I mean, we've grown population wise. You've got a lot of people who've been in an apartment forever that now want to buy homes. First time home buyers are kind of at a disadvantage unless they have saved a down payment. A lot have, a lot haven't. And there are less programs out there now, and there probably will be less in the future based on how they are currently presenting the real estate industry. You ask about the inventory abundance, or people tell me about Florida and Florida and Texas.
So as I did some preparation for this conversation, I originally was in Texas in February and started looking at the topic. And there were two things that struck me. One was that suddenly the prices in Texas were starting to tumble. They had overbuilt, and that was one thing. And the second thing was the insurance companies were starting to pull out because of the natural disasters that they were having, mostly along the coastline. And Florida was in the same situation where the insurance companies are pulling out of Florida. And so all those people that had bought all those condos, you could get a condo for pretty cheap down there right now. You won't be able to insure it. And I also believe that State Farm is pulled out of California because of all of the fires and the earthquakes. And they've just picked up and left California, said, we're not going to insure you. And so that is
driven by climate change.
Yes, that's created people wanting to get out of those situations. So that's created an excess of inventory there, dropping the prices. Another thing that I ran across in Texas, and I actually tried to get a hold of these people to see if they would come and share this space with us today. In Austin, the cost of housing is so expensive, it was doing exactly what you talked about, driving young people completely out of the market. And they in Austin wanted to keep those young people there because, clearly at some point, those people like me are going to have to move to the old folks home. And we need somebody to take my house. So they wanted to keep those people in the community and connected to the community because they were their workforce. So what that nonprofit did was they took $1,000 a month. They did a one-year trial, $1,000 a month, and they identified, I don't remember how many people, and they gave these people $1,000 a month. There were no strings tied to it. They told them to use it for whatever they needed to use it for. And then a year later, they came back and they had hired an outside research group to research what they'd used that money for. And what they found was they had used it for housing. They'd used it for medical expenses, which doesn't surprise me because I learned the other day that the number one thing that debt collectors make phone calls for is medical debt. So they use it for housing, medical, and food. By and large, a majority of them had done that, and there were only a handful who made different choices with their money, and very few of them had left the city of Austin with that $1,000. And I don't know, there was no follow-up about what they were going to do beyond that, because they just had completed the research. But they never got back with me, and I would have loved to have heard where they were going from there. I found that concept very fascinating with the high price that we have for housing, and we've got these young people with young families that probably need to be in a house, but they can't afford to be in a house. And I just got back from San Diego, and I can't believe the homeless population there. It was appalling.
Unfortunately, you may see the homeless population, or unhoused, I guess is what we're supposed to call them now.
Okay.
Folks potentially. Okay, so when you purchase a home, they escrow, or they put into a fund, your insurance and taxes, as well as the principal and interest payment on your home. And the only thing that is dynamic in that parameter are the taxes and what did I say? Property interest. And the interest rate is set, so they can't change your interest rate, but the taxes
And insurance
can fluctuate.
And your insurance.
As well as your insurance costs can fluctuate. Yeah. So insurance and taxes are not going down anytime in the near future. And so you have a lot of folks who got into houses, hopefully when the market was good, but if they got in recently and they are maxed out or close to maxed out to what they're paying for a house payment, including those escrowed amounts, and the escrow changes and increases by, I mean, I can't tell you about anything other than what I know personally, and I do see the statistics. My home county in Southeast Kansas, people are in mass exodus from that county, and they are continuing to spread the tax base through the people who stay. So their taxes have gone up and up and up. They don't have a hospital there. That's another topic. And so people who used to have an $800, $900 house payment are now paying $1,300, $1,400 because their taxes have increased. And insurance costs are going up across the board because of the very thing you mentioned, natural disasters. And a lot of those are on the coast. Sometimes it's fire here in Kansas. Those have happened. But and so insurance companies, even though they are showing record profits, ironically, are still raising premiums.
So Tori says we have a question on Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah, I can read that out for you. It says, can you address what impact huge firms like BlackRock?
Let me see. Do I see Tori's? Let me see if I see Tori's question.
Oh, no, it's on the Facebook Live.
Betsy just read it.
I'm reading it to you. Do you want me to put it in the chat too?
Can you, okay, there we go. Yeah, read it to me again.
Okay. Can you address what impact huge firms like BlackRock, who buy large swaths of real estate, have had on the market, and what the impact is on buyers and renters? If negative effects, do we know if the DOJ or other federal agencies are working to take action to offset the negative impacts?
Okay, from an agriculture perspective, I'm going to address this question first. From an agriculture perspective, we've been transitioning this way for a very long time, sadly. Corporate farming has slowly overtaken the family farm, and family farms are large now. They're not even small like where I was born and raised anymore. BlackRock, yeah, I don't know. I wish they would take a closer look at it. With the election things going on right now, that's probably the least of their worries. Do I think they'll take a look at it in the near future? Probably not. We're probably looking at maybe the second year of the next administration, whatever it is. And honestly, depending on what administration transitions or who's elected, it may not ever get addressed. And as far as the impacts on the impact on the market is minimal, if any, just because, I mean, it affects us personally and economically from an agriculture perspective, but from a property valuation, no. Property values are not decreasing and haven't decreased for a very long time. Did that sort of answer your question, Tori?
Yeah, there was just that post on Facebook, and I think it's really, I think it's something that I think we're trying to understand from a trend, and I wanted to have a subject matter experts kind of thoughts on that as well. But thank you for Simone for posting that on Facebook.
What about rental costs and places like
So,
BlackRock
yeah,
and that other company we talked about the other day on the phone?
yes. So, as agents, as real estate agents, we know and we can see who is buying single family housing. And we're not talking huge apartment complexes, we're talking single family housing. And there are some corporations in the United States who are purchasing every home that, well, they were purchasing every home that popped up. The problem is from an agent perspective, we are onto their game now. And this is the standard MO. Every time they purchase a home, they will put an offer in, and their stipulations are you have to use their title company and their closing agent, and here's what they'll pay, and they'll do inspections in this period, and they have it down to a science like clockwork. And then they don't say this up front, but after inspections they start to put the screws to you, and they screw you down on price. And it can be anywhere from $3,000 or $4,000 all the way down to $20,000 or $30,000. They want you to take off the price, and they'll have a laundry list of items they want you to repair based on their inspection. And oh, by the way, you can't be there for the inspection as a seller's agent. So they are effectively purchasing, and had been for quite some time, many, 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 many single family homes, and then they charge top end rent for it, and it drives the rental market up higher and higher and higher. So it has, in that facet, in that stance, it has affected the market considerably. Rental prices are considerably higher, unless you go to a rural area like where I live now. That hasn't happened here, but I know a neighborhood in Gardner, Kansas, where well, I won't say the name, a corporation has purchased, that's probably, I think there are probably 350 doors in that small subdivision, and the corporation owns at least 120 of those homes. And they charge top end, and I don't understand, other than I suppose they can write it off. At any given time, many of those properties, probably more than half, were vacant because they're charging so much rent.
Well, and that happened with our firstborn and their husband when they wanted someplace in Prairie Village because that's where mom and dad are. So they ended up with a place 4 minutes away. So it's so good.
Yay!
But they initially, the place that they wanted, there was a cash buyer that was a corporation that was outbidding them. And then I think probably that buyer had looked at two different properties, and in the end, they decided on the other property. So Andrea and Miles got this cute little house, but it could have gone completely another way.
Mm-hmm. And often it does. And you hope for a seller that looks at the offers with an eye that will provide a family to live in the neighborhoods. That doesn't always happen. And a cash buyer, oh my gosh, I mean, if you could close in 10 days and have cash in your bank account in 10 days versus a lengthy closing of 30 to 45 days when you purchase and finance your purchase, I mean, there are perks to both. Yeah, it's not easy. And I do both. I work with sellers, I work with buyers, and I do not like to be the agent on the end of the phone call when I have, and I'm not kidding when I say this, I literally, on a few properties have had to make a spreadsheet of all the offers. I've had a property in North Kansas City on, well, it was south of the airport. And I had 32 offers, all kinds of offers, cash, finance, FHA, VA. And when it comes down to it, and that's the other thing we're not supposed to do anymore as agents. We're technically not supposed to write a letter from the buyer. And that's kind of a gray area as well. And I had 4 or 5 letters. And when they give you something, you have to present it with the offer. So I did. And it ended up, that the agent who took the time to actually say, they wrote a letter to the potential seller or to the sellers as a potential buyers. And is it okay if we submit that? And I mean, I guess so. So we submitted them. And one of those buyers actually was the recipient of the bid. The other interesting thing I found when I was doing my research is that 100%, and this comes from National Association of Realtors, 100% of the asking price, let me see if I want to say this correctly because I was like, there's no way. Oh yes, there's a way. Sellers. All right. Julie, fill the time while I find this.
Well, I have a question for you, and I can't ask you the question while you're looking for another.
Well, I have a statement from our Facebook participant who asked that question, and they said that's exactly what's happening across the state line in Waldo and in Brookside, which
Absolutely.
should be kind of population dense sorts of places. Then there's single family homes surrounding them, but right in those areas, there would be a lot of apartments. And Overland Park, holy cow, just huge, just apartment building after apartment building popping up in places that used to be like mom and pop little restaurants or shops.
Yeah. It's sad. And I don't know at this point. I mean, I hate to say this, the cat's kind of out of the bag at this point. I mean, it's like wrangling kittens and getting them back in a bag. There's just no way. It's so diverse. Yeah, it's just a diverse selling market, a diverse buyer's market, and you can't make everyone happy, and it's just difficult. The stat I was going to quote, and I can't find it right now off the top of my head, or in this stuff that I printed off, but it was amazing to me to see that what the listing price was 100%. Like there was nationally, or in our real estate market in Kansas City, the asking price of buyers, unless you have an agent who is not savvy or adept, the kiss of death in the real estate market as a selling agent is to overprice your home. Because if you overprice it enough, buyers won't come and look at it, and it sits on the market. And when that happens, then buyer's agents think there's something wrong with the property. So the kiss of death is to do that. So when it's priced accordingly and priced what the market drives, 100% of the time they are getting the asking price.
Or over the asking
and
price.
Above.
Yeah. So can you hear me? Because I mess with my microphone.
Yeah, you can hear you.
Okay. I want to circle back to the escrow thing.
Yes.
So we do know that insurance is going up. I listened to my sister on a tirade for 20 minutes the other day about how she was shopping for insurance. And I was like, oh my God.
It's a thing.
It is a thing. So we don't have an escrow account. We haven't had one for a long time because of this very situation. The bank is entitled to they're entitled to escrowing more than, I'm trying to say this right, more than what they actually need. Isn't that correct?
Well, it's what the market mandates. So they have a book of mortgages and values for homes, and they monitor those, whether they tell you that or not. They monitor them, and they know exactly how much your home is worth always, and how much you owe on it always. Obviously, they know how much you owe on it. They have the mortgage on it. But So they can, they, I don't know that they mandate how much, like they can't call you and just go, hey, your house is now worth $360,000. And when you bought it, it was only worth 175. So we need you to insure it. But what you are doing as an individual is you're paying insurance, depending on the insurance you have, to replace the home if it burns down, if a tornado hits it. It's funny you'd say that. Someone just asked me today. So if a tornado hits their home, then they're done, right? Then they don't have to, like, they'll reimburse them for it. And I was like, let's hope a tornado doesn't hit your home.
Yeah.
Okay, let's hope that.
Yeah. So, because as I recall the situation.
So I don't know what you were.
Well, here's what happened. I'm just going to make up numbers. So like between our taxes and our insurance, it went up $150 a year. But my escrow went up $300 a year. So when you divided that out, I was put in that situation as two educators.
You froze. There you are.
Oh, yeah. Two educators, we were put in that situation where it was like, okay, where are we going to come up with this extra money? And I was really irritated that they were charging me more and they were making interest off that. And I wasn't making interest off that.
So they can estimate how much money your escrow account has to have in it to pool from to pay your taxes. They pay your taxes. Most of them pay biannual or every 6 months. They pay your taxes every 6 months out of the escrow fund. Yeah. So they can estimate, and that's why they call you and say, ring, ring. Now you owe us $600 more because we have to have that much in there because we know this is how much your taxes are going to increase, or this is how much your insurance has increased. Ironically, in a couple of situations with sellers, I've had banks call them and say, if you don't find an insurer to do this, then we will find you an insurance company and you will pay our premium. You will pay the premium that the insurance company that we provide and find for you.
Yikes.
That was in a distressed property situation, but I don't think that's appropriate either. I mean, if your house is insured, it's insured. So
really, as people living in Kansas, where we know that our insurance is going up because my sister went on this 20-minute rant, and we know that because insurance companies are pulling out of Florida and Texas and California, and they probably have losses there that we're going to make up for, because that's the whole theory behind insurance, is that we pool together, and that our taxes, property taxes, continue to increase, which people tend to blame on the county. But the reality is the parameters that the county uses are set by the state legislature. So we need to be pointing our fingers to Topeka instead of to, I guess my county seat is that way. So we're going to get, if you have an escrow account, the potential is that you're going to get a double whammy in the very near future here in Kansas. And we need to all be aware of that if we have escrow accounts. Is that pretty accurate?
pretty accurate. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's no two ways about it. They are going, it's increasing, and they have to roll the cost down to you. Insurance companies are still making a lot of money. Don't be fooled by that.
I will tell you, this is the thing that my husband and I say all the time. I've never seen a poor insurance man.
No, ever. Not once.
So here's another thing that I just did some reading about the other day, that I don't know that this is going on in Kansas or Missouri, but I do know this is true in Topeka. There are a lot of empty office spaces, and what people have decided they're going to do is they're going to retrofit these office spaces for living spaces. Have you seen any of that?
I have. They're doing that in Kansas City. I have seen a couple of buildings where they are doing that very thing. If there's anything that COVID showed us, was that you don't have to have your butt in a seat every day. You can work, and sometimes far more efficiently when you're comfortable working from home or home office or wherever you work from home. And so, yeah, a lot of those huge buildings. There's one, right off of Row and State Line in Kansas City, I saw the other day, in actually Leawood, I suppose is where it is. It's still on the Kansas side. The old yellow freight building. It's a huge building. and it's just sitting there empty, and the for sale sign is outside, and they are taking, and I've been inside the yellow freight building, so it would take some serious renovations, and they're billing them as condos and lofts. It's true. It's happening.
That's interesting.
Price wise, I mean, the rental market is going to drive those prices too.
Yeah. Do you know, are they major corporations that are coming in and buying up all those properties and doing that?
Not off the
Or are
top
they-
of my head. Besides the usual suspects, no, I don't know any firsthand. And the usual suspects that are buying up single family housing would not be doing that.
Okay.
I know there was some concern. I don't know whether it's you or someone else mentioned that foreign investment is driving down the price of real estate, or driving the market down in some areas. And I don't believe that either. I know you and I had a lengthy conversation about multi-generational housing. One thing I can say, and I will try to say this in a politically correct format, I have a pretty good group of folks that purchase from me on a regular basis that are from Mexico, and they are legally here in the United States, and they do blue collar labor. They are roofers. They are drywallers, painters, and they are very frugal and very good with their money. And so in the first time home buyers market price range, first time home buyers of all kinds are going head to head with investors in the same price range that have cash because they've saved so much money, whether they are Hispanic, Asian, white. I have the market numbers here, the purchase numbers here if you want, but it doesn't change, and it's not a huge impact. The numbers stay pretty much the same year to year. It's about 52% Caucasian, about 14% Hispanic, and then the others are divided pretty evenly amongst the categories they have them in. But they tend to have multi-generational housing within the same home, and they are very frugal and efficient about how they do that. And that's not something, I mean, I grew up with family, but not in the same home. So, but again, I did the research when we talked about it, and it's just not impacting the market. They just happen to be smart buyers.
Okay.
And they're buying, we would call first time home buyer range up to about 250,000.
That wouldn't have been my first time home buyer range at all.
No, mine either, Julie, but it is now.
Yeah.
It goes from, Tori's, as a parent, I'm telling my 16-year-old and 12-year-old, you have to read that to me. If I pull up Facebook, it's going to make that weird
Yeah.
noise.
So it says,
And I don't see
as a parent, I'm telling my 16-year-old and my 12-year-old, please go into the military to get access to the VA loan. I told my sophomore, you have to take advantage of the rules of the game and get access to being able to afford a house. There's probably some truth to that, and there's probably some benefits if you could get some skills out of the military. I talked to a guy that's 80-some years old today that went to the VA because he had pneumonia. There are some advantages to that.
So what they don't tell you about VA loans, Tori, and this is just interesting, the fees that they charge you, a VA fee is about 7.5% of the purchase price. So you may get a low interest rate, but there's still a fee that they charge for the loan. Oftentimes lenders, when someone comes and says, hey, I want to do an FHA loan, I want to do a VA loan, and they weigh the options, commercial versus FHA versus VA, oftentimes it's cheaper for them to get into a home as an FHA buyer, which they don't have to do military service for that. We may see that change too. I just don't know. If they dabble in that, they're going to have to make some changes because they've put FHA and VA buyers at a disadvantage the way they're currently accepting the offer from National Association of Realtors. And the things that we have offered to change as agents and as brokers. So yeah, I don't just be sure that your kiddos weigh all the options, look at all of them, and don't ever assume that the VA loan is the best way to go, because oftentimes the fees with it are not pretty.
That's good to know.
I would never have guessed that, so I'm glad you brought that up.
I think it's hard to, if you're a seller, it's hard to, there are a lot of rules and regulations that you have to have done to your house to sell to
So
someone that has a FHA loan, right?
right. So with FHA buyers and VA buyers, there are a few elevated parameters for inspections. And I've done this so long, I can tell you they don't want any peeling paint or wood rot anywhere, exterior or interior. They don't like stairs with more than 2 steps that don't have a railing. If you have more than 2 steps going in or out, or even in the house, there has to be a separate railing there for safety. I'm not going to tell you that we aren't savvy to their game as well. Oftentimes, as an agent, you will leave something obvious because it's their job to find something, right? One of the things with FHA and VA and any inspector really, but especially with them, any electrical outlet within 36 inches of a, 36, 12, maybe it's 18 inches. Now I'm going to make a fool of myself, but it has to be a trippable, a GFCI outlet if it's near water, and things like that. And those are just print. But as agents, if you have a savvy agent, your agent knows these things. And so they may find something simple. They don't always call it out and make you repair it. They may call it out and say they're still accepting the home. They take a good long look at roofs. They take a good long look at electrical updating, plumbing, HVAC systems, because they have to guarantee that loan. So if the buyer defaults, they being the Veterans Administration, the VA, or the FHA folks, make the lender whole, and then they own this house and they have to sell it. And that's where a HUD property comes from.
But the reality is, if I'm buying a house, I want my home inspector to take a good hard look at all those things you just mentioned anyway,
Absolutely.
because
Yes.
those are high dollar items to have to repair.
Absolutely.
And so I want to make sure that I mean, we got a new roof on our house when we bought it because it was trashed. And we've been here 9 years, knock on wood, and so far our air conditioner's still chugging away, 25 years old. And
there's an interesting conversation. When I was getting ready to come in here and sign on, my husband, who is also an agent, and I were having a discussion about, I was telling him about the conversation you and I had about insurance and the premiums going up and spreading the wealth amongst everyone. And it's sad when you pay these horrendous premiums for insurance. And I actually have someone who called, a former buyer of mine, who said, God, I'm afraid to submit the hail damage to my insurance company because I'm afraid they'll raise my premiums and I won't be able to afford the premiums, and I won't be able to afford my house. And that in turn leads to deferred maintenance on properties, where that's why you end up with a house like you have, where people are like, it's good enough. I don't have water in the house, or I'll patch it up, and it's just sad. It's like medical. I'm sure I'm preaching the choir, Betsy. I know I am. I have the same situation. Oh, maybe I just won't go in for that, because maybe, yeah. Houses are the same way, sort of.
yeah, it's a frightening thing. Well,
It is.
Betsy, Tori, do you guys have any more questions?
I'm just grateful. I have copious notes that I've been taking. And so thank you for your time tonight. And,
Tori,
even if it's parenting one-on-one, what not to tell my kids. But at the same time, this has been, I guess, a great experience. And I just so appreciate you.
And I echo that. This is an area I know nothing about. And so
of course,
having friends that can fill in your
my phone is my computer is cutting out right now.
Of course. We're
Hey,
just
speak.
saying thank you.
Tori, yes. Okay, Tori, take down my phone number and you can call me with any questions, no strings attached, about housing. And I don't know about parenting because I don't know about parenting, but
Yes,
I have
she
a
does.
16-year-old that needs a phone cord coming from her butt.
She knows parenting.
My
It's all good.
Listen, I'd rather
my
navigate parenting over home buying any day. So I'm just going to be honest with
and
you there.
that's so sad because it's not, and that's the thing. They're making it so scary and it just doesn't have to be if you have somebody to help you. Okay, my phone number is 913-953-6188. And I forget we're posting this on all of Facebook. So yeah, anybody who has any real estate questions, call me or text
I
me.
almost stopped you and said, you know, if you say this out loud, everyone
Yep.
who views this video in perpetuity
I'm
is going
frozen
to have
again.
your phone
Oh,
number.
no.
Yeah. So if you need to buy some real estate, you need to sell some real estate, you have Meleesa's phone number, you will be good to go. All right, Meleesa, if you can hear us, thank you. All of
I
you
can.
out there in
Thank you.
Kansas land, be safe. I hear the rumbling at my house. Hope you all have a good evening, and we will hopefully see you next month with another exciting town hall meeting. Thanks, Meleesa. See you
Thanks
guys
for
later.
Thank
watching,
you.
everybody. Thanks, Meleesa.
Thank you. Bye-bye.